Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Radio Show, and of course, I am guest hosting for the day. My name is Brett Siegel, the disgruntled millennial. Of course, you can call me Mr. the Disgruntled Millennial. You can get me at Shaq General on Twitter. I am down here in Northern Florida, where I always broadcast to you live, completely and utterly free from your bigotry, microaggressions, racism, hatred, and patriarchy. And this week, I'm also free from your AIDS. I'm here today with my mother. We talk every year, once a year, on my dad's birthday. He died when I was 6 years old, and my mother and I only talk once a year. Actually, that is a complete and utter lie. We talk practically every day. She's pretty much all I've got. Mom, how's it going?
It's going. It's going fine. Proud of you.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. We have been talking today about my father, my mom's husband. Well, I guess they're still married. He's dead, but they're still technically, Anyway, my father died from AIDS. Not to recap the last two segments, but he died from AIDS, hemophilia-related AIDS, back in 1988, when there was still a huge stigma. My mom and dad worked tirelessly to bring education into the community so that we could ultimately, through education, not stigma, eradicate AIDS from the world. And this is sort of a somber time of year for us. It's always the time of year where, Dad died he was born and died within a couple months. 52 years and 36 years and a couple months. October 20th, he was born. He died on November 19th. 36 years later. And
not even a month.
And this is just normally for us, this is sort of an emotional time. Let's talk about how you and Dad managed to sort of combat stigma, but without sort of acknowledging the need for aid. Look, nowadays with the PC culture, I know we've been talking a little bit about the past, but these days with the PC culture, people are trying to normalize so many terrible things. And one of the things that I want to talk about in a few minutes with this new California law, which basically allows people to go in and without any fear of an attempted murder charge, purposefully give someone a life-threatening disease that basically without constant, it's like someone who took one of your kidneys, or someone who is a kidney transplant. Without constant medicine, that person would literally just die. Their body would fail on them, and they would die. And one of the things that you and Dad did was to promote the idea that what we don't need is a stigma. What we do need is education. But you never lost track of the idea that AIDS is a terrible, terrible thing.
Well, the thing about this law and the change is what it's doing is negating everything that we worked for 30 years ago.
That's right.
We first of all, recognizing that there have been some medical advancements in regards to treatments and drugs and things like that, and people are living longer with it. People are, the AIDS virus is a retrovirus. It was forever mutating and changing. But one of the things that was important back then was to make it clear that you can't just go out and
give people AIDS
without some
some repercussions.
Some repercussions, not only of giving somebody the AIDS, but that you have to you take some responsibility. Now, with that being said, one of the things that we did in trying to educate people was to try to express to young people in particular who we have a harder time convincing of things, and that is that, before you become sexually engaged with someone else, you should have that conversation.
Right.
Take some personal responsibility for who you sleep with and who you have sex with. And, that's an important aspect. And those was parts of some of the things that was important to us to educate people, that you don't have to go out on a date and decide to sleep with somebody the first night just because it feels good, but that you are putting yourself at risk. However, somebody that goes out and purposely, maliciously tries to infect somebody, or perhaps out of fear doesn't tell them they have AIDS, is should have some sort of consequence.
Well, I agree that it should have some sort of consequence, but I mean, the question, I guess, here is what kind of consequence? At this point, what they're doing is they're rolling back the consequences. It used to be that you could be put in prison for a few years. You could be put in prison for attempted murder. You could be put in prison for 8 years. Now, it's not even a felony anymore. It's a misdemeanor maximum. I mean, imagine you are some jilted lover and you just want to get back somehow. And, forget sex. All you need to do is really just transfer the blood from here to there. It would be not that difficult. I mean, it might be a little bit difficult, but I mean, if someone wanted to transmit AIDS to another person, it's basically like rolling back the penalty for murder. It's like rolling back the penalty for attempted murder. And it would be like rolling back the penalty for attempted rape. I mean, why is rape even wrong other than that it's just a violation of somebody else's personal space? You're not killing them, but you are basically changing them for the rest of their lives. And that's why I think rapists and murderers, they need to be put away. And also people who, attempt murder should also be put away. And just because there are more treatments now available, I wouldn't say that necessarily means that people should just be let off the hook. Like the idea is that there's so many there's so many medical changes that it's not that big of a deal anymore.
No, but it is still a big deal because people are still dying from AIDS and suffering from AIDS. So yes, to have a consequence for somebody maliciously going out and doing that is not unreasonable.
Right. Well, I think even with even if the law doesn't really affect that many people, I mean, how many people, to be honestly, how many people are going out there just like, I'm just going to go around infecting someone with AIDS? I imagine it's not that many. I mean, even those of us who are super duper alarmists about certain things, I imagine that there's not a lot of people going out there and doing that. However, the people that are doing that should face some consequences. Can I ask you something? What do you think is a possible reasoning for a law like this? I mean, could you imagine the reaction if lawmakers were to say, we're going to roll back the penalties for attempted murder, or we're going to roll back the penalties for rape?
Sounds to me like the people who are writing this and trying to push this through don't know anything about it, have never experienced it, don't know the horrors of the disease, which there still is. And I think that people still are not educated. They really it's like any issue that's big in the news, for a couple of years, and then it sort of dissipates and it's not important anymore, but it still is, and it's still rampant around the world.
Right. Mom, I agree with everything that you have said in all of your speeches about the stigma. We have to get rid of the stigma. You don't want to just reject people who have AIDS, but you can't ignore the fact that they have AIDS in the first place. You can't just pretend like AIDS is just a normal way to live and it's just like any other way to live, living with AIDS. So, what do you think is the cause? Like, why do you think it has to do with equality? You think that people are just trying to look out for AIDS rights kind of a thing? And this is just protecting people's privacy? Because I would say that there's an alternative view to that. But I mean, who knows what these crazy people are thinking? It's like they're ignoring the fact that we're dealing with a deadly disease.
Right. Well, privacy was a big issue back then too. People were afraid to tell their insurance companies for fear. There were issues of people not getting coverage because they had AIDS, and so I don't really know. I don't really know what the answer is, except that, or why somebody. I think the people that are, like I said, I think the people that are writing this and trying to change it really don't get it. They don't get the horror of this disease and how, it's not like cancer. You can't transmit cancer. You can transmit AIDS.
What's it like having someone that you love deteriorate from AIDS?
It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Your dad was 200 pounds, 6 feet tall when I met him. And when he died, I don't think he was more than 80 or 90 pounds. It was like he just walked out of a concentration camp. It was skin over bones. And he died in our home. He died lying next to me. And he knew he was going to die. He spoke out and talked about dying. He talked about how much he would miss his children. And he, in his beautiful letter that he wrote to you and your brother and sister, he told you to change the world, grow up and change the world. And that's what you're trying to do now.
We are here with Ellen Buxtell. You can get her at ellenbuxtell.com. That's ELLENBUKSTEL. She has been an AIDS awareness activist and a singer-songwriter for a large portion of her life, and pretty much most of mine. I am Brett Siegel, the disgruntled millennial, broadcasting to you live from Jacksonville. We will be right back on the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. You can get me at Shaq General on Twitter. We'll be right back with my mom on my dad's birthday.
Kevin Jackson
on the Black Sphere Radio Network.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.